Today we're going to be looking to install GitLab into our Rancher and Helm cluster. This is going to be somewhat involved. There's a lot of steps to actually get it configured properly to actually fit into the mold that we're looking to get with all of the other videos that I have on this channel, such as the Postgres server and the Certmanager that is already installed. So the Helm chart that GitLab gives you has a lot of different values that have defaults. We're going to be looking to change a lot of those and more boil down to what I'm personally looking for. If you want to dive into the GitLab docs and have a better understanding of all of that, feel free to. If you don't know what GitLab is, I'm going to spend the first portion of this video kind of going over that. And specifically, what we're going to be wanting to review here is going to be the GitLab Community Edition. I'm not going to be getting the Enterprise Edition. There's no point, personally, because I'm a solo developer. There's no reason to have the Enterprise Edition. It is very powerful. It gives you a bunch of other benefits, but at the same time, it's pretty pricey, so there's no reason for that. The Community Edition should be just fine for our purposes going forward. So with that, we're going to be jumping right into what GitLab does and kind of the benefits of using GitLab versus something else. So GitLab has something like a GitHub. It has a Git repository that allows us to store our projects directly into it. This is, as you can imagine, very nice, very convenient, because we don't have to use GitHub first off, and we can take control and take ownership of the code that we're saving and carrying into the future, right? For any project that you're having, you are taking the ownership. Now, admittedly, if you're taking the ownership, you do have to worry about data corruption, and along with that, you also need to ensure that what you're doing is not going to be lost, right? Because, like, for instance, if your server goes down or the cluster goes down, you need to make sure the high availability is there for you. And that's kind of the reason why I'm trying to set this up in our Rancher cluster, right? So that is one proponent of this. Along with the Git repository, it also contains a container registry. So this is really nice because a container registry allows you to essentially store built applications in GitLab. So you don't need to have to pull from, for instance, Docker, or in this case, you could also do something like Harbor, right? Because Harbor is also a container registry and also has a Helm chart, is also free. They're both similar. I think Harbor has its own benefits, just like GitLab has a variety of others, but GitLab is easier since we're only installing one application. We don't have to do a ton of configuration between the applications to have everything set up properly. So today, like, that's one of the reasons why I'm looking for GitLab. And of course, the last thing, and I think personally the most important one, is the CI/CD that comes with GitLab. The CI/CD is very powerful. You can see here, there will be multiple different custom stages for every different part of your application. It can do a variety of things. It can do testing. It can do deployment to multiple different environments. It can build the application to multiple different environments. There can be all sorts of different varieties here that the CI/CD kind of gives you. And this is all done through different runners. Again, just to go over, like, this is pretty akin to the Argo CD of the world. Argo CD is very similar. It's got that CI/CD. It gives you different actions that you can take on your deployments, whether that's testing, whether that's the different environments you want to build to. It also allows you to, like, rerun jobs and kind of keep track of the history of your pipeline and your application. But GitLab has all of that built in. So once again, the container registry, the Git repository, and the CI/CD all being available just through GitLab is just very powerful and very nice to have. So that's kind of the reason why I'm going with it. And there are other things like the issue tracker, right? The issue tracker is essentially just a Kanban that is built into GitLab. It's very nice because, like, as you have issues with your repository or you see a bug that comes up, you can then immediately create a ticket for it in the issue tracker. Along with this, there's a bunch of other things that come free with GitLab, like the RBAC system, user management, profile management, a whole slew of different things that just are essentially for free using GitLab in general. Again, this is meant for enterprise businesses, but the community edition gives you a lot of it just baked in, and you don't have to do much configuring at all to get access to all of this. So that's kind of the reason why I'm looking to get this installed, because personally I really want to have a pretty in-depth CI/CD, and I don't want to just rely on GitLab or GitHub for everything. I want to move away from GitHub for my projects and have my own in-house solution going forward. I personally don't like Microsoft, and I think it is far more ideal to take ownership of your own code and your own ideas. We're going to be going into the next section of this, where we're going to be going through all the different proponents of the Helm install and the values YAML that kind of is involved in this. So here we are. We're going to be looking at essentially 3 different files that you need to create. Technically, it would be 4 if I also had the secret here. I didn't need to make a whole file for the secret. I figured I could just do that through the Rancher UI. But the important parts here are going to be our Postgres job. This is essentially going to be setting up the database for GitLab. If you remember, we have our own Postgres instance set up in our Rancher cluster, and that Postgres instance is going to be referenced in here. So this job is going to set him up for success. So when GitLab actually tries to spin up, it is migrating its tables, and the database and all of the storage is going to be put into Postgres that's already in the cluster, instead of creating its own Postgres server. There's no point to have another Postgres server when you have one that's going to be encompassing for the whole cluster, right? As I had detailed in that video. Then along with this, we're also going to be looking to create a issuer for Certmanager. This guy will essentially handle all of the TOS certificates for the different applications that GitLab will be setting up. Those applications are going to be GitLab itself, as you know, but also the container registry, and I believe 2 others. We're going to be setting up CAS, which is a Kubernetes agent server, Amino server, essentially like an S3 bucket, and then our registry, right, for our built images. So you will need a few different subdomains here. You can see here, I don't have a wildcard domain, so I'm going to have to create TOS certificates for all of them. Admittedly, that's very easy. You just create the issuer, and then as long as GitLab is configured properly, it will use this issuer for all of them and just create the TOS for everything. And then finally, the GitLab configuration. This is just the values YAML for this. Again, it's very long. We're going to go into a deep dive in a moment here of everything that you actually need to update and add to this file, which we can go ahead and start jumping into. So we're in the cluster now, and we're going to go ahead and jump into creating the secret that we're going to use for our database. Now, this is important because this is going to be the secret that is needed for GitLab to be able to connect to the Postgres server. What you can do is you can go to more resources and then secrets. And then in here, just to show you how to do this, what you can do, it's really simple. You just hit create. It's going to be an opaque token. You're going to click the namespace that you want it in, give it the name that you want. This is going to be referenced inside of your values YAML. You can put it inside of the Postgres environment. The reason why I just put the raw password here, it's easier. It's not ideal, but it is easier. Otherwise, you would have to create 2 different secrets. This is the PostgresSQL password in the namespace, PostgresSQL. So that's why, like, unless you want to create multiple secrets per app for this, it's easier just to put the password that's going to be used in the secret that you're creating for that environment. So like this one's going to be going in GitLab. The password that's going to be in this is going to be the password that's set right here. Again, it's not necessarily ideal. Depends on how you want to cut it. If you want to instead just have this as an environment variable, you can do that too. Like that's what's happening right here with the Postgres password. It can just be that if you would rather go that route. I personally don't think it matters that much, so I'm just going this route with this job. And then now you're going to create it, right? You're going to name it whatever name that you want. It can be something custom. I think I kept it simple, just like Postgres secret, something like that. And then the key is PostgresSQL secret, and then, or maybe password, however you want to cut it. And then the value is going to be the unbase64 version. So the decoded string, so whatever the actual password is the value. Once you create it, then it will save as an opaque token. Once you reference it, it will, if you pull it in, if you ever look at it, it will be encoded in 64-bit. Then you can decode it and still get the password. So it's you won't lose it forever once you do this. It's just encoded in 64-bit, and it's just a nice like thing that's separated from your environment for the password. So yes, that's why I personally don't think it's that much more secure or less secure putting it in just plain text versus just putting it in base 64. It's not that big of a difference either way. It being a secret in one spot and versus the other shouldn't really matter. It's kind of an artificial security in a sense. You would create this, that would be added to your list of secrets. Once you actually set up GitLab, you can see I've done it in the past. All of these will be created. I'm not sure about these two. This might have been some testing stuff, but all of these other ones will be created, and then they're just gonna exist. For reference here, I will clear these out just to show that there's nothing wrong with having a fresh set, and it should work just with a fresh set regardless. But I'm not going to delete my Postgres secret with that Postgres password or the Cloudflare API token secret. So let's scroll up. Let's delete all these. Don't need them. That should be cleared out nice and clean for my GitLab instance. Okay, and now we're going to actually create the job that's going to run the database sequence that is this guy right here, this job. We're gonna go ahead and create them. So what you can do, and it's really easy, I'm gonna leave all this code in a GitHub repo so you guys can have easy access to it. But we're gonna hit the kubectl shell, and then we're gonna jump into a file. I'm just gonna make a file real quick. It can be named whatever, keep it simple. PostgresSQL Job.yaml. You go into interactive mode, so make sure you're in insert, and then you can just paste it. And you can see here, this kind of already sets up everything for me. The only difference is I need to actually change this password for this guy right here, and then I will set him to the password that I'm actually planning to use. Okay, so I updated it. And then what you're gonna wanna type in after creating the file, you're gonna hit kubectl create-f PostgresSQL job-job.yaml, the one that we wrote. And once you run this is gonna spin up the job, right? We have the job created. We have almost everything that we need to be set up. The last thing that we're gonna wanna do is to create our issuer. So let me go ahead and do that. And again, this is just gonna be some copy pasta of some code. If you're doing something different, then make sure that you get what you actually want. So in this case, right, I am using a DNS01 because that's what works for me. If you can use HTTP 01 as a solver for your issuer, for Certmanager, do that. I'm just using this because this works for me. And you can see here, this is referencing let's encrypt private key. So I think this is gonna set up a secret. And then in here, it's also going to use the Cloudflare API token secret that I want. So with this, it's gonna be in the right namespace and everything. This is production, as by the way. So once this runs, it will actually create the TOS certificates. The GitHub that I'm gonna be posting will have production and staging. You can see this one is staging. It's pretty much the same thing. Only thing you need to update is this guy right here. And if you're using a different solver, use a different solver. And yeah, so that I'll make sure they're both in here. And then from here, so we're going to create that issuer. Okay, and you can see he is now created in the right environment. So that should be good. And you can see in Certmanager, we have that let's encrypt. You can see the other projects I have has a let's encrypt -prod. You can name it what you want. I'm gonna delete the staging one. You don't need two of them. All right, and you can see that, and then we're good here. So now finally the last portion of this video will be actually creating and installing that Helm chart. So let's go ahead and do that portion. So that's the actual bread and butter of what we're trying to get accomplished today. So first you need to add the repository GitLab. You can see here, this comes from http charts.gitlab.io. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, create a new one just to show that this works. So we're gonna call this GitLab. The target will be HTTP or HTTPS. Here it is. There's no authentication for it. You hit create, it'll process it or run, and then you can hit charts. We're gonna show GitLab in here. Obviously nothing's loading because it hasn't finished getting them, and boom, there they are. These are all the different GitLab charts that we're gonna want. In this case, we're gonna hit the one that says GitLab because that's the one we're gonna be installing today. And then you're gonna hit install. This is version 9.2.1 for your information in case some things are different with the version that you're installing. And then here, I'm gonna name this Helm chart GitLab. Doesn't need to be anything spectacular. And here is the fun bits. So there's a lot to change in this YAML file. It's very long. There's a lot of options they give you, and a lot of these kind of weigh in what you want with your GitLab server. There's too many options in my opinion for something. If you just want something bare bones, it can be a kind of intimidating to figure out what exactly you want to use. But in this case, I went ahead and got the ones that I think are valuable. So we're gonna go ahead and start with that. So you can see here, install CRDs. I'm gonna do false for this. I already have these credentials for Certmanager installed. This is essentially like additional stuff in your Kubernetes cluster. You might want this to true. If it doesn't work because of it says these don't exist, set this to true. And this is specifically for Certmanager. So then we're going to specify a Certmanager-issuer like this. So this is going to be johnnydeets@gmail.com. This is going to be whatever email that you want for your stuff. So this is the one that I'm using. And then I'm going to ignore the GitLab runner. There are some values that I think you need to add, like this secret. It's a bit of a pain. I think it's actually easier to get it installed first and then come back and update this. So that's what I'm going to do. Because I think that just works better for getting this runner working. So next we're gonna jump into the global. We're gonna jump into host, and then down here you're gonna see this kind of hard to find, but there should be, it's alphabetical, so it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm gonna look for hosts. Okay, so I lied to you, it's not alphabetical. For whatever reason, it's mostly alphabetical, but then it doesn't do that. But you can see here, I'm actually just going to update the domain. Here is going to be the domain I'm actually using. It's going to be my personal website. So I'm going to have like gitlab.johnnydeets.com, whatever else. If you want, it's very easy to do that because I own that Cloudflare URL. And for me, it just makes sense to have this exist on that. So then I'm also going to turn TLS to enabled to be true. Then we're going to continue downward. We're going to hit the ingress right here. This guy is going to have similar stuff. So he will have, instead of this, some of this, I'm going to throw this in here. I have that twice. Use new ingress for certs. That can be false. I also have this bit here, TLS enabled true, so let me throw that on this guy. And then essentially what we're doing is we're specifying the class for this ingress. It can be nginx. Where I'm copying and pasting from has different types of tabs. So this does happen with some of these configurations. There's like different types of tabs that exist in the world, I guess, of Helm charts. And if you're using the wrong one, it will complain. So in this case, I'm pretty sure, I already have an annotations as well. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you resolve this as you're going. Again, it's just because of where I'm copying and pasting it from. So I'm gonna have to do this for quite a bit. But the next section we're gonna jump down to is PSQL right here. This guy, we're gonna specify the Postgres server that we actually want and all of that. So I'm just gonna paste over this guy. Yep, and then we just got to go through and make sure this is all correct. These, again, this is that job that we just ran. This is connecting it to the Postgres server that we have. That's why we're doing this. And then you can see here, I am specifying the password. There's already a password, so I'm deleting that. And then I have the secret and the key for him. So next, we're going to do, where we can, this nginx-ingress. We're going to jump down to him. We're going to set him to enabled to false. somewhere in here, there's the word enabled. And we need to set it to false. I don't want him enabled. I have my own nginx-ingress, right? That was that whole point of creating that guy. It's just to not have to configure him, because yeah, they just give you, this is too much. There's no point for this. So yep, and then we're gonna jump down to PostgresSQL right here. We're gonna hit install to false, and then there should be an auth portion right here, and we're gonna update him to be the one that we want. So that will be this. We're existing secret keys, and then use password files. So again, this is all going to be inside of my GitHub repo. It should make it a little bit easier to actually see what you need to update. I missed this, but edition needs to be not EE, CE. So CE is community edition. It's kind of buried in the global section. This is actually really important because we don't want to be paying for our stuff, right? We're just looking to use the community edition for that reason. And I think that makes all of our changes that we need. Yep. And that's it. So with that, we should be able to just hit next and install, and we're gonna wait and see what happens. So if it takes a while for you, there's a few reasons why it takes a while. One is the migrations that run on the Postgres server do just take a while. Also, it is starting up a ton of different pods, a ton of different things. If I actually want to see everything that's happening, you can go to cluster and you can go to your GitLab cluster. And then this gives you a better idea of some of the stuff, and then you can hit pods. And I think this is a much nicer like breakdown of the specific things that we're kind of waiting on. Some of these, again, it says dependencies. Dependencies really meaning the migrations. And you can see him, he's running. This guy is going to be running migrations on the database for Postgres. He's important. Once he finishes, then everything else kind of spins up. So he does just kind of have to happen first. I already ran these, so I think it will detect that these have been ran and then skip over it, but still have to wait for him to spin up. So you can see here, actually connecting to it, you can see it's performing the migrations. This will take a while. There's a ton of migrations to run. If your Postgres server doesn't have enough resources, then it won't actually be able to run this migration script. So it is actually really important that you make sure that it has enough resources. This is something that I spent a while on to actually figure out, because when I went through that video, I didn't show you guys how to actually update Postgres to have more resources, because I left it as the default. So if we actually go back to our installed apps and we hit PostgresSQL, you can see these are still running, so everything's going good. So if we go to PostgresSQL and we actually hit edit and upgrade, and then you hit customize Helm charts, and then if we scroll down, there's some options. You can see this is nano. This is the amount of resources that you want. Nano is not what you want. In this case, I think these are for specifically things I don't use, but you can see I have medium. You want medium or better. So yeah, medium is like, I think a gig or something. You can check Postgres's web server to actually figure out how much that is, but yeah, that's actually really important, because I spent a while debugging why it wasn't, the migrations kept failing, and it was because my Postgres server didn't have enough resources to actually handle the migrations. So important piece of information to know. And then if we go back to pods, and then you can see these pods are all actually wrapping up now that those migrations have finished. You can see the dependencies are done, but these are going to keep waiting until the web services finish. And then once these are finished, then we should be good. And that job, that whole application should actually be installed. So if I go back to apps, recent operations, hit this one, view logs, you can see he's still kind of stalled. But so you can see here, this actually says it failed, right? Because it's been over 10 minutes since I started this. That's okay, right? It's okay that this failed as long as this continues to install. It's kind of obnoxious. I should have increased the timeline for this. If I had a better if I had a better rancher system with a better, like with SSDs and newer RAM and newer processors, like it probably would have installed and actually ran quicker, but I don't. So this is, again, a pretty extensive application. So understanding that this extensive application requires a lot of different things, it does take a while to actually install properly. You can see even while it's installing, some of them do fail multiple times. But after these guys all actually finish, we should be good to go. So would you look at that? So after just waiting long enough, I think it took about 20 minutes for everything to run. We have all these pods running successfully. You can see they're all running except for the runner, which, like I said, this requires a secret. We can fix him later. The migration kind of is just getting angry because, again, I already migrated the database, so he's just not able to successfully complete. But you can see I can actually log in. So I have username, primary, email, password, and then you can even like register accounts and create accounts and have all of that accessible for people. You can also turn this off, which is important, right? Like if you don't want, you want to just have your own stuff in here, you can do that too. So you have, GitLab gives you a ton of control. And now, like, how do you actually go about logging in? So now the way we actually go about this is if you hit more resources and go into core, we're gonna go to secrets, and then in secrets for GitLab, there is a very important GitLab initial root password. This gets generated as you are creating GitLab, as the Helm chart's installed. This is for your root account. I'm pretty sure the name of the root account is root, and then the password is whatever gets generated. So I'm just gonna copy that here, and I'm gonna paste that, hit remember me. So I currently have a problem because I already installed the application, right? And like I said earlier, when I installed this, the migrations already ran. Well, when the migrations run, that's what creates the initial user. And I'm assuming it creates a generic password with it, and then that's what gets saved as a secret. Well, it's using my user for his root would have already have existed. So the one that I'm copying and pasting from this guy is actually incorrect. So I'm gonna see if I saved him, and if I didn't, which maybe I did. No, I didn't. So because I didn't, I'm gonna go through this process again and then log in. So give me a moment. So after all of that, it looks like it's installed. I did have to reinstall it. So you can see here, this is actually what you get once you're done installing it. Let's actually log in to show that everything is working properly, and then I'm gonna just take us through just a couple more steps just to ensure that like we have what we want. So you can see here, here's our initial root password. I'm gonna copy this, and then all it is root, and then we're gonna paste this, hit remember me, and then sign in. You should see once you're logged in, it should give you this beautiful output. Boom, logged in. That's awesome. So that is all good. Now it says check your sign up restrictions. We actually do want to do this. Shucks, didn't mean to hit that button. So, but you can get there again. I'm pretty sure if we hit admin down here, so we can hit sign up. Yeah, you can hit configure here, and then the sign up, you can turn that off. And then you can also require approval for new signups, admin approval. So it's like, this is already turned off anyway, but might as well do this as well. And then we can hit save. You can also do a delay list and everything else. Again, GitLab gives you a ton of customization. As you can see, there's so many different things you can kind of work through and add to, because this is for enterprise. So understand that, like, having this it can be very powerful. But if we were to now go to GitLab and then do an incognito window, and you can see here I also have TOS. That's totally working fine. I can't sign up. There's no sign up. I have a forgot password, but I don't have to sign up. So you can see that that's kind of how that works. And then now if I go back, and I didn't like that even reloaded without any additional attributes, right? I didn't have to do anything additional. And then yeah, you can kind of just go from here. You know, I can create a project. I'm just gonna do this real quick just to make sure this all works. This is gonna be my test project, and then, you know, test. I think if I do public, I do want to test this, and I hit create. Kind of curious if I access this from someone who isn't logged in, if they can actually access it. I think they can, and I think you can configure that to where that's not the case. But if I go to this URL now, we should see, yeah, we are actually here. right? This is the same page. I can pull it. I can pull it from my own GitLab. You can see which HTTPS or SSH I have access to it, and it is on the public internet, which is, it is cool, right? That's pretty amazing that I'm able to now have my own GitHub essentially registry with very little effort right now that I'm just using this community edition. I think in future episodes, we're going to get into more of the GitLab CI/CD. We're going to get into the GitLab runner. I believe there's a runner currently. I don't know if it's working. And because of that, I'm not going to like really dive too much more into this. I think today the whole focus was to get GitLab running and actually be able to log in, get it customized, set it up, all of that. And as you can see, that is all working. So if you guys have any comments, suggestions, or any other changes that you would like to see, please leave them below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you would like to see that, and catch you guys later.